Hi everyone, it's David here. So today I've come out to visit the Avebury Stones. The stones were built inside of Avebury Henge, which this path runs through. I'm now going up the steps to the stones themselves. Archaeologists believe that it took 1 million man hours to erect all of the stones in the positions that they can be found in today. Nobody knows exactly why they did it, but it's believed that they did it for spiritual and social purposes, a place to hold ceremonies, to worship the land that they farmed, because the Neolithic people were early farmers of this land. And they also had their religious practices, which it is believed were to make sure they had a good crop for the year. It took them around 1 million man hours to create this thing. It was absolutely multi-generational. There are lots of other sites in the area which were all connected with their spirituality, ranging from Silbury Hill to the West Kennet Long Barrow, a burial place, to the West Kennet Avenue, which is a long avenue of, again, massive stones, taking them to here, to the Stone Circle. The circle is surrounded by a giant henge. Now the henge, which is like a mound, a gigantic earthwork with a ditch, it was created not like you might think in more modern medieval history, to defend against invaders. It was made more to keep bad spirits away and to keep the good spirits inside, or so it's believed. Over the years, what was once a massive place of worship, to honour the ancestors and pray for good harvests, etc., got taken apart quite a bit around 700 years ago due to superstitions and change in religious beliefs. Some of the people took the stones and they buried them. Also around 300 years ago, many of the stones were taken apart and used as building materials. And they think many of the local houses and the museum here, they think it may have been constructed with former stones that made up the stone circle. And the other thing to say about the Avebury Stone Circle, not only is it the largest prehistoric stone circle in the world, it is also the only prehistoric stone circle in the world that has a pub right in the middle of it. That pub, you can see behind me here, is the Red Lion, and it's got a well in the middle of it as well, which is rather unusual, but it's a nice place. There's a bus stop right outside. Lots of people come up here from Swindon, have a few beers, enjoyed the sunshine and the stones. So I'm going to have another look around the stones now, maybe drop in the pub, and I'll talk to you all soon. Now the stone circle dates back to 2500 BC. Can you imagine what time must have been like back then, way before all of the luxuries of modern day life? And yet they managed to heave all of these gigantic stones to Avebury. So I'm now walking along the edge of the henge inside of which the stone circle sits. When they dug the henge, it would have gone as deep as 9 metres. Now the current henge is only about 3 metres because of changes in land and soil erosion over the thousands of years that have passed since it was dug. Well, one can only imagine what it must have looked like at the time when our ancient ancestors were visiting it. Now, there is also a more modern history to Avebury. The village that sits next to the stone circle dates back to the relatively modern period of AD 500. And before that, next to Silbury Hill, you had a Roman settlement that was established after the Romans came here and conquered England in AD 43. So lots of history here from prehistoric times right up to AD 500 and beyond. So behind me you can see Silbury Hill. Silbury Hill was completed in around 2300 BC. It was constructed over a number of stages during a period of around 50 to 150 years. So again, it was a multi-generational task to get it finished. And it was done by hand done by antlers from red deer that roamed the landscape at the time. Now, the purpose of the hill isn't exactly known, we can speculate, and they built a massive ditch around it as well, which may have been for use as a reservoir or to reflect the awesome whiteness of what was then a chalk hill, created from all of the chalk all over this area. Now, this is near the source of the River Kennet, which it is believed was a very special place for the people of the time, with lots of streams nearby and that kind of thing. Silbury Hill is the largest prehistoric man-made mound in Europe, stretching up to 30 metres high. And the ditch around it is 100 metres in diameter. When it was completed in 2300 BC, it was a very interesting time for the late Neolithic people, because they'd had a lot of new visitors from Europe who'd settled in England, and they were called the Beaker people. They brought with them lots of new pottery that was kind of beak-shaped, hence the Beaker people. And eventually they bought metalworking and all sorts. This whole area was a very special place for the late Neolithic people, who would have come from miles around to settle here, to have ceremonies and to congregate. I've just finished doing a walking weekend in the area with the Met Walkers, and you'd just be walking along and wow, there's a Neolithic burial mound. We're just casually walking past it. They're all over the place here. In other parts of the country you might see one here and there, but they're fairly rare. So it's fascinating to come here, to go walking, to do a bit of sightseeing, studying of the history, or what we know of the history, and to think about what life must have been like for those people all those years ago. If you enjoy my work, please like, comment and subscribe. This stone has... It's true. I am the stone itself, and I have subscribed. So I'm now at the Adam and Eve stones. These stones would have formed part of Beckhampton Avenue, which were another avenue of stones leading to the Avebury Stone Circle. The one we have lots of remains of is West Kennet Avenue. You can walk down it, there's massive stones on each side of it forming the avenue. It really is a spectacle and something magnificent to look at. Unfortunately, not much remains of Beckhampton Avenue, apart from these two stones. The rest of the stones were broken up and used for building materials, or they were buried, or they were even burned. No one knows exactly why they were buried and burned, but it could be to do with changing religious beliefs and the superstitions of the time. And we know that Beckhampton Avenue leads to Longstones Cove, where I am at the moment. Today it's a beautiful wildflower meadow with the Adam and Eve stones in the centre of it, and it's a wonderful place to go for some peace and reflection if you want to get away from the crowds at the Avebury Stone Circle. Stretching for around 1.5 miles through the prehistoric landscape, the West Kennet Avenue once formed an impressive route of paired standing stones leading from the Avebury Stone Circle towards the sanctuary. Built during the late Neolithic period, the avenue originally contained around 100 pairs of stones, although many were later removed, buried or broken up. Its exact purpose remains uncertain, but archaeologists believe it may have formed an important ceremonial route, guiding people through this remarkable landscape and connecting to sacred ritual sites. Today, many of the stones have been re-erected, allowing us to follow part of the same route that people walked more than 4,000 years ago. Welcome to the sanctuary, which stands at the opposite end of the West Kennet Avenue to the Avebury Stone Circle. Although little remains visible today beyond a series of concrete markers, this was once an important ceremonial site, first built in the late Neolithic period before being rebuilt and expanded several times over the centuries. It stood at the end of the West Kennet Avenue, suggesting it formed part of a much wider sacred landscape linking monuments such as Avebury, Silbury Hill and the West Kennet Long Barrow. Rather than existing in isolation, these places appear to have been connected by movement, rituals and shared beliefs. Today, only traces remain. But, standing here, it's still possible to appreciate how this former stone and timber circle, sitting at the top of Avebury Hill, once played its part in one of the world's most remarkable prehistoric landscapes. So I'm now at the West Kennet Long Barrow. This long barrow dates back to 3650 BC, the early Neolithic period. It was the burial place for 36 men, women and children, so quite a solemn place to be. It's not the only one of its kind. There are about 20 Neolithic burial mounds dotted around the area around Avebury, and several of them will have had stone entrances like this one. However, this is the only one that's been fully excavated and restored to what it would have been like at the time. For the first 1,000 years of the existence of the West Kennet burial mound, people would have come here and left little keepsakes to their ancestors who passed away and were placed inside of it. These would have included animal horns, flint tools, and even human and animal skulls and bones and other bits and pieces. By the early Bronze Age, they brought along 3 large rocks and they covered up the entrance. And that was the end of it. I've come here just after dawn, and it's a nice place to reflect on our ancestors and the important contribution they made to the development of modern life, even all the way back then, because they were an early farming community. Prior to that, in the Mesolithic era, Britain would have been covered in trees, and we would have all been hunter-gatherers chasing down animals on the basis of what we could hunt for food. And it turns out the West Kennet Long Barrow is still a popular place to this day, both among visitors and, as I just discovered, among little birds who love flying in and out of it. I don't know if there's a nest in there, but they love it in there. So as well as being home to at least 20 long barrows, around 150 round barrows can be found in the Avebury area, including the 3 that I'm going to be passing in a moment on my right, upon which lots of large trees have been planted. Now, nobody knows exactly why this shift in customs happened, but it could be something to do with the arrival of the bee people, because the long barrows were something that was done by the early Neolithic people, and the round barrows came in during the early Bronze Age. So the long barrow would have housed a lot of people over various different generations, and people would have gone to visit their dead and leave little keepsakes there for them. But by the time of the Beaker people, the round barrows were just mounds of soil and chalk that were placed over the bodies of individual people, or a few people. So why could this be? Why did they make this change? Well, this was before written history, so nobody can be entirely sure, but it's speculated that this could be due to society becoming more hierarchical. It could be that important people were buried beneath the round barrows in a way that ordinary members of society weren't. So it could be a bit of a step away from the communal living practices that we saw during the early Neolithic period, and a shift more towards a hierarchical society. We know that the people of the Bronze Age brought a lot of skills with them. The Beaker people came from continental Europe. Their genes replaced almost all of those of the Neolithic period. So modern British people will have inherited most of their genes from the Beaker people. They brought a lot of bronze with them. They brought new farming practices. They even brought early signs of metalworking, early metalworking. So they brought a lot of skills, and it's thought that this is the reason behind the change in their burial practices, in that society just changed completely, not overnight, because there is an overlap. There was a period where both long barrows and round barrows were being used at the same time, but it is a sign of the change in times of the period, and it gets you thinking about how we remember our dead today and how important it is to remember our loved ones, whether it be through long barrows, round barrows, or church graveyards, as we do it in this day and age.
And if you made it this far, thank you for watching. What you're seeing here is St James's Church in Avebury village. But a few miles west of Avebury lies another remarkable Neolithic monument. It's called Devil's Den, and that's what you can see right now. It's outside of the core ritual landscape that we've been exploring in this video, so I've made a separate video looking at that site in more detail. Please click here and you can give it a watch.